I've been using tech like this for the last 15 years, and so trust me when I say you're spending more than you need to on these subscriptions and these products. There are so many surprising ways to pay less and to actually get more that I just decided, let's put this all together into one bumper video. Many subscription services will only give you their best rates if you specifically try to quit. Like one example I had recently was Now TV. So a Now TV subscription here in the UK is $9.99 a month. But here's what happens if you try and cancel that membership. So first it tries to solve any issues that you might be having. And if you're not having any issues, then you can continue your cancellation. Then it tries the hard sell. It's like telling me all the things I'm going to be missing out on. Continue cancellation. And then look at this. Before you go, here's what else you'll be missing. And it's only when you click continue again that they properly get down on their knees and beg you with a 50% discount. And then if you decide you want to give them the boot one more time, there's a pretty decent chance they will make an even better offer to you. But whatever happens, you're saving at least the equivalent of $35. So let's keep track of how much we're saving on this bar over here. Because it's not just online subscriptions. In fact, your mobile and your TV service providers are one of the best places to play this strategy. Essentially, you just find out what other service providers in your area could be cheaper. You tell this to your existing service provider over the phone. And this is the important bit. You actually have to convince them that you're planning on switching. So for example, if you were changing mobile phone contracts here in the UK, you'd have to ask for your pack code, which is the code that you'd need to give to your new service provider. And that will very often trigger either an immediate discount on the spot or a follow-up call a couple of days later with a discount ready. This is called a customer save, and it's like a very real thing that sales reps at these types of companies are constantly given targets to try and hit. And so you'll actually have a particularly high success rate if you try this near the end of a month, where they will actually need that particular save to meet their targets. I did this on my own phone contract a few months ago, and I managed to get my rate down from £18 a month to £11 a month. Exact same package. If you're about to buy a laptop, you can go for less internal storage and then just use adhesive pouches like this to attach external storage instead. Which means, let's say I was buying a MacBook Pro. I can either pay Apple $2,400 to upgrade to an 8TB storage drive, or I can pay $1,100 buying two of these very similar speed 4TB external drives. It adds a bit of weight, yeah. But then at the same time, there's a lot of upsides. Like these drives allow you to create instant external backups. Handing files to friends is as simple as unplugging and then replugging. You can also use these pouches to store extra bits like your AirPods, and it also saves you $1,300. Apple One, Apple's combo subscription that gives you all the Apple subscriptions in, well, one has a family plan where you can share it with up to 5 other family members. But as long as you live in the same country as the people you're sharing with, no one's cracking open a DNA test to verify. So let's say that you're currently on the Apple individual plan, you'd be paying $20 a month. If you instead upgrade to Premier, but then you share that subscription with 5 other people, you actually end up paying a lot less and getting a lot more. You would save $163 per year, and you'd get more services. You'd get Apple News Plus, you'd get Apple Fitness Plus, and you get 40 times the cloud storage, which even if you split evenly amongst the 6 of you, is still a lot more than you used to get. Oh, and this family plan trick, it applies to many subscriptions. So just as another example, a year of Nintendo Switch Online is $20 a year. The family plan is $35 for up to 8 people, which ends up as a quarter of the price per person compared to a solo membership. And you still don't need to live at the same address. If you're ever in the market for a new camera, then using a grey market site like Panamos or eInfinity can straight up save you 25%. These sites are completely legal, but they just exploit a loophole in which most of this gear is far cheaper in Asian countries because of lower sales tax and just more competitive pricing. So these companies just take stock from there and they sell it directly to Westerners. So you're not going to get much in the way of an in-store warranty, but if you're buying something that you feel is pretty reliable, then it's a very easy way to save a straight up $1,000 on your camera body and lens. And also, while we're on cameras, you can get, no exaggeration, 97% of the experience by buying a model from a few years ago at like 60% of the price. And it's just because the camera market is so mature nowadays that each new generation is making very minor tweaks as opposed to big shifts. So for example, you can very easily find a Sony a7 III for around $1,300 new. The a7 IV is $2,000, and it's not going to affect the images you can take. The vast majority of people will be better off taking that $700 saving and just putting it into better lenses. If your TV is starting to get slow, but you're still happy with the picture quality, then instead of replacing the whole thing, just buy an Apple TV 4K box, and it will essentially swap out the old sluggish brains on your TV for a completely new, very fast brain, along with this swanky metal remote that will actually make it feel like a new experience. And you can get one of these for pretty much nothing over $120, saving you at least a few $100s if you now no longer need to go out and buy a new TV. If you've got an iPhone, then Apple TV is a bit of a no-brainer, but I've also got friends who've got Android phones for which they still prefer the slickness of Apple TV as opposed to the Google equivalents or the Roku equivalents. For smartphones, last year's flagship phone is almost always a better buy than this year's mid-ranger, if you can find it new from a reputable company. It might seem like newer is always better, but mid-range phones in almost all cases are just using older parts anyway. It's just that they also happen to have less software support, worse quality cameras, worse build quality, the list goes on. So as an example, the Google Pixel 9a is Google's 2025 mid-range phone at $499. But it really doesn't make any sense to buy one at that price, given that you can get the actual flagship Google Pixel 9 from 2024 for a little more at $599 and have a far better experience that, importantly, is also going to last you longer. Also, don't buy fast charging bricks from the phone brands themselves. They do charge, it's just what they charge is a massive markup, just because people assume that that's the one that they need to buy, but it isn't. Like Samsung will charge you $50 for a 45-watt power brick. If you spend that same money on a brand like Anker or Ugreen, you'll literally get a 100-watt power brick that could not just handle your phone, but your laptop too. And if you don't want that, just buy their 45-watt charger and save 50% of the dollar. It is amazing how many people haven't realized this yet, but all three of the major console makers all have ways to be able to share your digital games with your friends, not just your physical ones. So for example, Nintendo has this brand new virtual game cards feature, which allows you to share certain digital games with your friends by loading and ejecting the games as if they were real cartridges. So they're only playable on one console at a time, but that's still a lot better than both people having to buy separate copies of the game. And PlayStation and Xbox, while they don't actively advertise this, you can still absolutely achieve a very similar setup using either PlayStation's console sharing or Xbox's ability to have both a home Xbox and then effectively an away Xbox, saving you $40 to $60 for every game that you now no longer need to buy a second copy of, and maybe $100 for GTA 6, who knows. Be on the lookout for streaming service bundles. Like if there's a bunch of shows you watch on different platforms, there's a decent chance you can get those services thrown in together for a bundle price. Oh my God, Samsung. Gotta fix these loading times. Like for example, Disney Plus with Hulu and Max in the US, which costs $17 for the bundle a month, as opposed to $30 if you were to get each of them on their own. $156 saved, just like that. Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus are a really cost-effective way to get access to a massive library of games. And unlike in the early days, the companies have actually started adding their heavy hitter titles to these. With Game Pass, for example, which is $17 a month, they literally just day one dropped Oblivion Remastered on there, which you'd struggle to buy for less than $40 at retail. So as long as you play at least one new game a month, you're almost guaranteed to beat the market. And I did used to be very resistant to the idea of this, because I've always liked the idea of like owning a game. But let's face it, we are moving towards everything becoming digital, with newer consoles not even coming with disk drives. So you don't really own your games anyways. So you might as well just save some money and rent them. As for how much this saves you, it's going to depend a lot on who you are. But if we're being very conservative, you should save at least $15 a month by just being a bit more flexible and waiting for games to become available on these services. And related to this, but arguably even better, the seasonal sales on Steam are absolutely nutty. For example, in their spring sale this year, Undertale was literally less than $1, which was a 90% discount. The Incredible Sifu was 60% off, and Outer Wilds was 40% off. But also, more recent games like Star Wars Outlaws and EA Sports FC were down by 50% and 70% respectively. Now, that doesn't mean hold yourself to this by law. Like, if you really want to play a game right away, just buy the game and play it now. But if you just know that you want to play something and you're less fussed about when, add them to your Steam wishlist, and eventually you'll see that sweet, a game on your wishlist is on sale notification, and you know it's paid off, so you can get off paying. When you're buying tech online, if you haven't heard of the brand, just do a double check to make sure that you're actually buying from the source. It's such a common thing now with online marketplaces like Amazon and TikTok Shop for sellers to quickly put together a new brand. They'll pick a random string of 4 to 8 letters that's cheap to trademark and also cheap to discard if it ever starts picking up bad reviews. Like our good friends Long Yifa. They'll buy the actual product from something like AliExpress and sell it to you for 4 times the price. Almost 5, actually, in this case. Also, if you are going to shop on Amazon, two more things. First, keep a very close eye on which listings are sponsored and which aren't, because the ones that will appear higher in search will almost always be the sponsored ones, and therefore also a less good match than the actual top recommendation that you'll find just below them with like a nanometer of scrolling. So let's say I was searching for a new mechanical keyboard. So look at this, all first three options are sponsored, and they either have no reviews or not great reviews. Then as soon as you go below that, you've got products with literally hundreds of very positive reviews. And second, if you're a bit of an Amazon power user, you will quite enjoy this site called Haggleson. So you search for something just like you would on Amazon, but this tells you all the different prices of that same product across all the different European stores. So this one isn't for Americans, sadly. If you bump into a product where there's an enormous difference, which is actually not a very rare occurrence at all, you just click it, it'll take you to that Amazon product page, and then you just see if there's any extra shipping cost and if that ends up being worth the saving, which could very easily save you $30 a month. Whenever you buy a new electronic device, it's always worth finding out how much you can get by trading in your old one. It is a lot easier than the whole process of listing and selling on eBay, and you might actually get more, especially with Apple devices. Apple has one of the stronger refurbished programs, and so they're pretty confident that if they buy a used phone off you, that they can still sell it on for even more. Like an iPhone 13, for example. You could either list it on eBay and get maybe $230, and if you sell, you'll get about $210 of that once you factor in shipping. Or, let's hop onto the Apple trade-in website, find your trade-in value. Yes, it's Apple. Then you scroll down, select iPhone 13, and then Apple isn't actually fussed about what condition your phone is in. It's more really, does it work or not? And if it works, you get $250 towards your next iPhone. If you can avoid it, don't use Uber Eats or Deliveroo. I'm not about to say you need to start growing your own sushi, but I am saying try to buy directly from the restaurant first and only resort to these delivery services if that's just not an option. Because if there is, 99% of the time, either the meal or the delivery cost, or to be honest, most likely both, will be cheaper by doing so. So for example, local pizza place in my old hometown, Caprino's, the exact same pizza plus delivery that would be £13.49 if you use the Caprino's website will now become £22.06 if you order via Deliveroo. Watch out for vampire devices.
Peter, wake up.
Which it sounds scarier than it is, but it's basically electronics that continue to draw power even when you don't think they're on, which you can completely stop by just unplugging them. Pretty much every product that has some kind of standby function will be sipping power. And so it's worth just doing one pass through of all the things you own and deciding for which products you need that instant always on accessibility for and for which you don't. The biggest power suckers do tend to be set-top boxes, PCs, games consoles, and even laptop chargers. They will drain power even if there's no laptop attached. So assuming that you unplug the worst offenders, but that you're not taking it to its literal extreme, you should expect to save $50 a year. Mobile apps will often be a lot better optimized for your mobile data usage than websites, which means, let's say you decide you want to watch YouTube, watch it on the YouTube app instead of the browser. You want to scroll Reddit, then help randos farm karma using the mobile app, and you'll save anywhere between 10 to 30% of your data and be less likely to go over your data cap. And speaking of data caps, if you haven't set one up yet, then please do. Android has the feature baked in, so you should just be able to go into your mobile network settings and set data limit here. If you're on iPhone, then you'll need to go through your mobile carrier's app and set the restriction that way. But either way, it needs to be done, because if you accidentally drift over your prepaid data allowance, that is when you enter carriers charging you whatever they feel like territory. And it's a dark place, my friends. It's not uncommon to be paying above $15 per extra gigabyte. And bonus one, which I also think is a complete banger, if you want to watch a show online, let's say in my case, How I Met Your Mother, which I'm currently binging for the 4th time, then in the UK at least, you need a Disney Plus subscription. Or do you? Because if you use Surfshark VPN, our sponsor, to switch location from UK to US, you can actually just watch the show on Netflix US. So assuming you're already paying for Netflix, this stops you needing to double up. And that saves you quite a lot of money. If you go to surfshark.com/boss and use the code BOSS, it ends up at around $2 a month. Disney Plus would be the equivalent of $10 a month. Or $15 if you want Ultra HD, because of course it is. Plus, you can share that Surfshark subscription with as many people as you want, with zero restrictions. So as long as you're smart about it, you can pay as little as you want to pay for it. Not to mention the hundreds of other perks of a VPN, like increased security when you're on a public Wi-Fi network. So that is quite a significant potential saving from one video. Let me know your favorite tricks and maybe we'll do an episode 2.